Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV, where we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Ayuba Ilya. Let's begin with the tidbits tonight. The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, has pledged to end insecurity in Imo State if voted as president in 2023. Obi, who stated this while addressing a mammoth crowd during his presidential rally, which was held at the Kanu Nwankwo Sports Arena, Owerri, also assured that the state will be carried along in all activities and vowed to change Nigeria for the better. Also, the Independent National Electoral Commission has appealed to Nigerians to see its facilities as national assets and protect them ahead of the 2023 general elections, following the spate of attacks on its offices in different parts of the country. INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu made the plea at a meeting with the West Africa Elders Forum held at INEC headquarters in Abuja. The INEC Chairman added that it will be practically impossible to conduct elections and electoral activities successfully in an atmosphere of violence. He, however, added that electoral commissions in West Africa and beyond have expressed concern about the impact of prevailing insecurity on the conduct of elections, banditry and other forms of armed conflict. Now, similarly, the Nigeria Interreligious Council has called for a peaceful and credible conduct of elections with exactly 81 days to the 2023 general elections. The call was made during the Council's fourth quarterly meeting themed Peaceful and Credible Elections for National Renaissance. Take a look.
Democratic until its citizens have the opportunity to choose the representative through elections that are free, fair, credible, and peaceful. Hence the importance of the fourth quarterly meeting of NIREC ahead of the 2023 general elections.
So I don't believe it's a make or break election. And we must not play into the hands of those enemies of Nigeria who keep on parading or bringing such issues as this is the election that will decide the fate of this country. Only Allah decides the fate of this country and any other.
A country cannot be truly democratic until its citizens have the opportunity to choose the representative through elections that are free, fair, credible, and peaceful. Hence the importance of the fourth quarterly meeting of NIREC ahead of the 2023 general elections.
So I don't believe it's a make or break election. And we must not play into the hands of those enemies of Nigeria who keep on parading or bringing such issues as this is the election that will decide the fate of this country. Only Allah decides the fate of this country and any other country. Let's not play into their hands. Let us go out, campaign peacefully, and whenever the elections come up, we elect whom we think is best for us, and we leave the rest to Almighty Allah.
As a faith leader, I am convinced that this ugly history of pre- or post-election violence will not be repeated if we all decide to halt the trend through strategic conversation that appeals to the conscience of the political class like we are doing here today. Unbridled ambition and cutthroat competition among Nigerian politicians is a major part of the problem. Even people with no coherent political ideology and development agenda of any kind also engage in do or die politics. The other issue is the lack of transparency in the electoral process.
However, NIREC were given the mandate to preach peace and unity among their members during sermons, as well as the importance of understanding and respecting each other.
The leadership of NIREC have a critical role to play in this forthcoming general election because they are regarded as the spiritual heads, influencers of the society, and also custodians of our theology and ethics, which the followers look up to for guidance. At this critical period of active political activities, the leadership of NIREC are expected to be apolitical.
Experts are of the opinion that the only way to be certain of a smooth and fair election process is to maintain law and order and respect for humanity.
All right, now to the main issue in focus for today. Some Nigerians have described the lecture held by the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, as disappointing. In several reactions to the video, the presidential candidate was faulted for delegating members of his campaign team to answer questions thrown at him by members of the audience. This and many more will be our focus on Daily Politics tonight. And joining us in the studio is a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, Ali M. Ali, and also Emmanuel Njoku here with us in the studio. He is the Director, Democracy and Governance at Connected Development. Thank you so much for joining us on Daily
Thank you for
Politics.
having us.
Thank you, Ayuba, for having me.
You're welcome. All right.
Good evening, viewers.
Now, before we begin the discussion, we'll take a short breather, and then when we return, we'll get to bring in the insights. All right, thank you for staying with us. Now, the discussion's proper. I would begin with you, Ali M. Ali, as a member of the APC Presidential Campaign Council. I mean, that video, the outing of your candidate, has been received with a lot of reactions. I'm sure you would have seen some of them. A lot of questions, issues being raised, and one of them is the fact that people are wondering the basis for assigning questions directed at the candidate of the APC to, members of his entourage.
Well, thank you once again for having me on the show. A lot of reactions, mixed bag actually, trail the Chatham House address by our presidential candidate. Naturally, it has engendered a lot of discussion, especially in social media and even mainstream media. You've seen a lot of comments. And rightly, they're asking why delegate some of these questions, directed them to members of the team. Now, that tells you one thing, that first, Asiwaju, who runs, if given the mandate, an all-inclusive leadership style. And this is not the first time. He's done so out in the past, even as recently as when he addressed, I think, the Lagos business. I'm trying to recall the exact period when he asked members of his entourage to respond to certain questions. And now if you look at it, out of how many questions asked, he answered, I think,
4.
all except, I think, 4
Out of 10,
Yeah,
yes.
out of 10. And then even at that, there are places he interjected to throw more light. Now, like I said, it tells you, gives you an idea how he runs his government, how he ran it in the past as Chief Executive of Lagos State, and how he intends to run it once given the mandate. And we've seen that in the past. We've seen presidents, actually, who delegated certain responsibilities to lieutenants. We've seen an instance where the president of this country actually delegated his slot to address the United Nations to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
So for the
We've seen-
critics,
Yes.
for the critics of your candidate, they do not necessarily perceive this as delegation of responsibility, rather abdication of responsibility, because some of them argue that if you are assigning these questions to them, on what basis, in what capacity? Are they now a representation of his shadow cabinet, if you like? The likes of El-Rufai, Femi Gbajabiamila, who's Speaker of the House of Representatives. On what basis and what portfolio? Because from what happened in that Chatham House, he hasn't even heard the questions yet, but he went right ahead to, assign this question. So on what basis is he doing that?
No, I think the questions were asked when he said, look, he was going to digress after the questions were being asked. He said, look, members of my team would answer specific questions after the questions were being asked. Now, you know, because it's Bola Ahmed Tinubu, an enigma, a front runner in the upcoming election, naturally he would, his actions and inactions, his utterances or silence would be given all kinds of interpretations because he's a front runner. It comes with the territory. Whatever, like I said, his action or inaction would be given all kinds of interpretation. His silence or his comments will be taken out of context and given a different coloration. Like you said, critics, the opposition, they've feasted on that. They've feasted, first, some of them look forward, as a matter of fact, that there may be one or two glitches, and then they plan to dwell on that.
So at the end of the day, he gave them an opportunity still, you know, by assigning these questions, because, you know, part of the argument is that he is the flag bearer, and Nigerians are looking, Nigerians and the world at large, as a matter of fact, looking at the platform that, you know, he went to, are looking forward to hear from the very man who is going to be steering the ship.
Now, look, see, most of the responses, in fact, most of the questions asked are even in the, are captured in the action plan of the candidate. Most of the questions raised were actually captured in the action plan of the candidate. That's, in other words, another word, a byword for manifesto. So if he had chosen, like he answered some of the questions out of those asked, he responded to them. He said, look, I have a team. And I just gave you a while ago instances where the president, you know, has asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs to represent him at the United Nations General Assembly.
That's very normal for a president to delegate responsibilities,
this is the
right?
president,
but
yeah.
we are talking about a candidate here who is vying for a seat. But let me just let Emmanuel Njoku bring in his own perspectives on this. I mean, for many who are watching this and from the international dimension to this, I don't know, what do you think that this will mean for Nigeria?
Let me start by, you know, I've seen how he has tried to defend this, but distinguish sincerely. And so looking at your, I mean, to imagine your age and being aware that probably in the past you must have done a paid employment at some point, or you are an employer of labor. You have people who, I guess, work for you. So I'm wondering, has there ever been a time where you went for interview for a job in the past, when you were going for a job and you had to go with your friends or relatives? Or have you employed people who worked for you, who at the point of calling them for an interview, come with their friends and relatives? I mean, I say this because a candidate who is presenting himself to serve Nigeria, to serve, must present himself in an interview, because you are coming to serve the people. So you must engage with the people. So when we try to, you know, have these conversations on media, we should be careful and mindful of people watching us. I've seen a report from, is it Gazette Nigeria, one media, that said they wrote Chatham House, and Chatham House has replied that the candidate of the APC, Tinubu, ambushed them as they were not aware that he was going to delegate those questions. That the principle of Chatham House is to invite candidates and hear from them so that they can hold them accountable in the future. So if you look at the principle of Chatham House, to have a conversation with you, and the candidate comes there to delegate questions. Now, what is different between this and exam malpractice that we see in universities? And this is why I think we should be a bit careful when we defend these things, because as we are defending these things, are we saying it's okay for a child who is in university, who comes to an exam, to come with his friends who will help him answer questions that he's supposed to answer by himself? Because this is what this portrays. This is pure malpractice, because he traveled all the way to engage. And frankly, Nigerians were excited. You are aware that we've all been hoping to see the president candidate of the APC engage Nigerians to share his thoughts so we can hold him accountable in the future. The present administration of President Muhammad Buhari, in the past, before the campaign in 2015, a lot of people said different things. You know, when people said that fuel price will come down to how much, I can't remember, it come down from the price then, that dollar will be 1 naira to $1. But we've seen them deny this and that they didn't say these things. So all of these questions that El-Rufai, Daly, all of them answered, we cannot hold the presidential candidates of this party accountable in the future if he doesn't do any of these things that these people have said.
Well, I'll let Ali to respond to that. It's one of the issues that have been raised, the issue of accountability. And there are some who have argued that perhaps the presidential candidate of the APC has been avoiding any kind of live interview on TV, such that he doesn't want to be, so that he's not going to be accountable to the Nigerian people and all of that. So what do you say to that?
You know, people, they're at liberty to sketch all kinds of assumptions. They've been working on assumption. Because like I said from the onset, given the enigma called Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the mistake of the man, people are want to give him a lot of character interpretation. Now, why will he want to shirk accountability? This is a man who, to all intents and purposes, has dominated the national political landscape in the last 2 decades. He has remained in the national political conversation. And he's been subjected, his character has been subjected to the crushable. And even in the Chatham House, that people still, old issues have been resurrected. They've been trashed, subjected, like I said, to the crushable. Issues that we thought long buried have been brought forward, resurrected, and laid bare.
Yes.
This tells you one thing, that his aura is so domineering and so dominating.
But isn't it just right that the Nigerian people want to really know who is going to be leading them? I mean,
of course,
if they are subjecting him to all kinds of scrutiny,
it's expected.
Isn't it what democracy is all about?
Yes,
isn't
it's expected. It comes with the territory.
You know, because this is a man that is going to be superintending over a whole lot of issues, right? Even issues, confidential issues, top national security issues, right? The judiciary, for instance, and so many other issues that, you know, this is like a trust. Nigerians are entrusting their entire life into his hands. So that he's being interrogated, should he be mysterious in any way?
Well, he's not been mysterious. It's not mysterious. He's been governor, he's been senator. So what mystery is there?
So why is appearing on national TV a problem? It appears to be a problem for him.
He spoke to the BBC Focus on Africa only earlier today.
We are talking about to the Nigerian people.
The Nigerian people, he's been engaging them. He's been going. I mean, look, I think this is stemming from the fact that he shone an invitation to appear in one of the national networks. It's stemming from that. And he said, look, your invitation, and we made this public, we made it very clear. We have our own schedules. And that, look, we've explained over and over again that the time is not convenient. That is one. And secondly, just like the national network said, look, that is the constitutional rule of the media to hold to freedom of expression, freedom of association. Also, the Constitution guarantees that. He said, okay, I choose to associate who I want to associate with. He's not totally declining, but he said, look, in this particular instance, no, I have my schedule. If it doesn't fit into my calendar, I will not honor it. I have other engagements. And this happens to be at a time that he's engaged in other activities. So, no, he's not a mystery man as such. He's not a mystery man. He's been governor 2 terms, and he has been
I mean, you are aware of all the controversies around his records, as to his educational records, his career path and all of that. A lot of controversies around that. How that people could not trace, you know, his classmates, people who he went to the same schools with, and all of those kind of
One of his leading critics took the trouble of going to Chicago, Reno Omokri, to ascertain if truly he attended the college he claimed to have attended. And then he returned a clean bill of health. And even in the Chatham House, somebody asked about his parentage. He answered that so resoundingly. So what more? But you expect, like I said, if you're a front runner, it comes with the territory. If you're aspiring to lead the office, the honors is for those who think he is not what he is, or who he is, to prove otherwise.
All right, well, let me allow Njoku to talk here. Looking at some of the things, the controversies that have trailed these campaigns, would you say that the APC has given Nigerians enough reasons to actually, you know, vote for them?
It's not in my place to say, because I only have one vote, and so I can only speak for my own vote, which I wouldn't do on national TV here. But sometimes, you know, I feel bad when we have these kind of conversations, and sometimes I even feel worse when I see people trying to defend these kind of things. You know, it hurts me really seeing. I mean, the right thing to do is to have Bola Ahmed Tinubu make himself available on live interviews. We are defending him in that same interview at Chatham House. I think that was the last thing he said when he was trying to respond to that question by that lady about being available to have conversations in Nigerian media. He said he's a big brand, and that he will not make himself available to media houses in Nigeria to make money off his brand. And you are presenting yourself to be the president of this country. So now I ask you guys, do you guys make money from Tinubu when he comes to live interviews, to answer questions to Nigerians whom he is going to serve?
Well,
this responsibility of the president is a very serious responsibility. Why are we almost turning it to a joke that the president will not be available to answer questions and he travels abroad? We've seen this pattern in the past. And it didn't really turn out really good for us as a nation.
Okay,
why are we allowing history to repeat itself in this same way again?
All right. Well, to some of the issues that the APC candidate mentioned during his address there, he talked about security and he talked about free and fair election in the coming election. And a lot of people are saying, well, if the APC have had 8 years of being in government, why should the APC be trusted to increase the numerical strength of the Nigerian security forces in fighting insecurity and all of that? Because those are some of the things that he said, you know, as solutions to ending insecurity in the country.
Well, you know, in the action plan of the candidate, he dwelled extensively on security. And like you know, constitutionally, the primary role of any government is the protection of life and property. Security is at the heart of it. Without security, nothing will prosper. Even the republic will be threatened. And now, going forward, the candidate is saying, look, we're going to build on what has been done already. What has been done is the retooling of the Nigerian Armed Forces. Like you know, is in the public domain. The Nigerian Armed Forces, their arsenal has decayed over the years. Until the APC government came into office, the armed forces of Nigeria have suffered heavy decline, if you like, of armament. Now, the Buhari administration has expended a lot of resources retooling the Nigerian Armed Forces, which, like we all know, for a nation like ours, the numerical strength of the armed forces and the entire security forces is grossly inadequate, given vis-a-vis the sheer numerical size of the nation. Let's begin with the police. The police is in the public domain, the size of the Nigerian police. The United Nations recommends one policeman to 400 people. But what do we have now?
But the issue is why should Nigerians trust the APC to do these things? I mean, in the past few years, I mean, a couple of times we've seen friction between the Nigerian Police Force and the Nigerian Police Service Commission that has to do with recruitment of personnel and all of that. So when you have so when you have those kind of controversies and you have a leadership in a country that has not been able to end this kind of controversy, should we expect more
Well, it's not even, it's a constitutional issue there. Who has the right, it's a legal issue, who has the right to recruit? Is it the Police Service Commission or the Inspector General of Police? And that's something that I'm not very conversant, but I think my pedestrian understanding of it is that that has stalled recruitment in the police force. But let's just keep that aside now, even at that, because if the recruitment are just mere 10,000 police officers, it's a drop in the ocean.
So if we're having issues over constitutional problems that are clear, by the way, because the Constitution clearly spells that the Police Service Commission has that mandate. But we've seen this interference, and we've seen this kind of
Police
conflict
Service Commission
under this same administration. What's the guarantee that when we come to do some of the things that we say in the coming administration, we're not going to be dealing with some of these political issues?
Let me tell you what Asuwaju promised in the action plan, which is doable. I say it happened already. That look, in as much as there is no state police, but there is also community policing, that people involved, depending on their ranks, normally the rank and file are normally locals, those who are conversant with the environment, with the community. They will be domiciled there, as opposed to the officer corps. Now, if you boost the numerical strength of the locals, those who will be involved in community policing, not state police, because having a state police is a constitutional matter. Perhaps then you will begin to close the gap, this yawning gap between the policy and the personnel. That's one. This is something that is in the action plan. If you have that, you boost the numerical strength, then perhaps you begin to check this shortfall in personnel, and then get the right armament, the right training.
Okay.
Now, yes.
All right. Well, the APC has had 8 years, to be able to do that. We haven't seen, to the best of what experts have said and all the data that we are seeing, it doesn't really reveal that these things have yielded any much results. But to the issue of free and fair election, Emmanuel Njoku, you've been watching elections and all of that. The president appears to be determined to leave a legacy of a free and fair election. He has said that several times on different platforms, even on international platforms, as one of the things that he wants to leave behind. But do you see that there's a political will to match what's been said to ensure that there is a realization of this?
Yeah, I believe strongly that we are going to have a great outing in this election in 2023. And beyond the body language of the president, we've also had the INEC chairman himself, repeatedly assure Nigerians in the different engagements we've had that we are going to have the best election that we've ever seen. And if you look at the body language from the point of the assent to the Electoral Act, to the deployment of technologies, so that brings me again to the conversation at Chatham House from when I was watching it. I know there was a part where the APC candidate was saying that INEC is yet to assure Nigerians that the technology and the deployment and transmission of results that they are bringing to board, that it will be credible. Meanwhile, every other candidate is praising this and saying this is good. But this is an INEC chairman who has repeatedly said this, and I say this frankly as an electoral stakeholder. INEC, as a government agency, in my opinion, is probably one of the most evolved, one of the most improved government agencies that I've ever seen in the past 8 years. So I want to believe that this election is going to be credible. However, just like INEC has also said, the insecurity that we are witnessing, the burden of INEC offices across the country, and the insecurity across the country may be a challenge to our elections, frankly, because I don't see how INEC will send their staff to places. So I know of a place in my state, in Imo State, is it Osu local government or so? There's nobody living.
Olu?
No, Osu.
Okay.
Yeah, Osu. Yeah, Osu. There's nobody living in this community anymore. People have vacated this community completely. How do you intend to send INEC staff or send coppers to go to places where they'll probably get shot? So this is a challenge beyond INEC, as we all are.
But to what extent do you think that the rhetorics that we're hearing from politicians and the verbal attacks, on personalities will, impacts on having a violence-free election? I mean, the past few months have not been really pleasant when you listen to certain supporters or spokesperson of some candidates.
So I'll tell you this from my experience working around elections over the years. With the deployment of technology into our process, with the transmission of results, result transmission, and what we saw in the Kenya election, I was in Kenya to observe the election. This election is going to have real popular candidates win election. This election is going to see people who are deserving of the people's mandate win election. For this reason, I tell you, some of our politicians who know that they are not popular are going to continue to instigate violence to suppress votes. You see this burning of INEC offices. It's not just happening. Somebody is sponsoring it based on whose interest the burning of INEC offices favors. So politicians are behind us. So you are going, I believe, with experience and with the rhetoric and with the quantity of arms that is in the hands of non-state actors, these people are not going to repent before February. So we're going to see more of these things. So this is a call to our security agencies, to face this problem and tackle it. So by February, Nigerians can go to the polls without being scared of getting shot.
All right. Okay, then. So it's a good place for us to go on a quick break, and then when we return, Daily Politics will continue. Join us again.
TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
All right, thanks for staying. You're watching Daily Politics on Trust Television. Do well to follow the conversation across all our social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and also watch us live on YouTube, where we are always streaming. Now, before we move on to the next discussion, I wanted to ask you this before we went on that break, and which has to do with the issue that the Inspector General of Police was raising some few weeks ago about governors being responsible for some of the attacks that we have seen on rallies and campaigns in some states. And two states come to mind when we hear this. We've had this experience in Kaduna and also in Borno State, where the APC is leading. Yeah. So, you know, if you marry this with what the president has said about leaving a legacy of a free and fair election, and what the candidate of your party, Bola Tinubu, also re-echoed during the Chatham House address, is there a commitment to that?
Of course. You know, the person who raises his fist is one who has run out of ideas. If you run out of ideas, you raise your fist. So if the IG, I have no reason to doubt his conclusion that governors are responsible. He is the security chief, number one security chief, apart from the commander-in-chief. He couldn't have said that on a very watery ground. He must have had his reasons. And the governors in the past, they've not conducted themselves in a manner that befits their office. Some of them in the desperation to win or to win their re-election, they've gone to taken desperate measures. As a matter of fact, in some places, it was alleged that some of the insecurity, insurgency we've witnessed is because governors raised an army way back in history to win election, using some of these elements to either, in the days of ballot snatching and brigandage generally, way back in the days of the inglorious days of the PDP, way back 2003, 2007 election, and some will say even 2011. But progressively, we've seen election has improved. A while ago, my code panelist here was making allusion to the Electoral Act 2022, which has significantly, which allowed electronic transmission of result. In 2015, it was the Electoral Act of 2011, I think, that proved to be the game changer with the use of smart card reader. But coming back to this charge by the Inspector General of Police, I think if he wouldn't have spoken out of ignorance. So look,
but yes, but is your party men taking this with all sense of commitment? Because
we take this very seriously.
I'm wondering how this is being
we
translated down the ladder.
We signed the peace accord.
Yes, and these attacks happened after the signing of the peace pact. I mean, in Kaduna, we also heard about a woman leader of the Labour Party who was killed, and it's likely not to be unrelated with, the issue of politics and the rest of them. So what we are saying is that how is this message going down the ladder to the supporters, to all the field commanders of the APC who are all over the media, talking about, to Nigerians and all over the social media as well? We've seen some of these, attacks on personality and the rest of it.
We've been talking a while ago, for quite more than half an hour. I don't think I've used any expression that remotely suggests any violence, you understand, at the level of the president, that is, at the level of the presidential candidate. He has won, and we've agreed, all of us who are charged with speaking on behalf of the presidential candidate, that look, not a hint of violence. Why would you want to commit violence when you are coasting to victory? Why? Why would you do that? But the flip side also is this. It's a lot easier now. Some would argue
about the subnational level.
That's the thing. That's the point I was going to make. At the subnational level, we've seen the level of intolerance at the subnational level. And some of this, on closer scrutiny, also cannot be isolated, cannot be divorced from internal crisis bedeviling some of these political parties. We know they are split right to the bottom. For example, in the public space, the PDP is split. There are the G5 governors who are on one side of the divide, who are working at cross purpose with the presidential candidate. And we know at the subnational level, there are pockets of discontent. So that's why I said, well, the Inspector General of Police must have his reasons for saying that. I don't have the information he has, and I have no reason to doubt what he said, because he is the #1 law officer of the country. But to also suggest that governors, which I agree also in the past, but you also have to look at the peculiarities of some of these political parties at the subnational level, and which should be worrisome to all of us. We've seen an instance in one of the states in the northwestern part of the country where the party chairman spoke violently only for him to lick his vomit, to say, look, this is not what I meant. It happened in one of the northwestern states. So it's important, like our candidate has stressed and emphasized again and again, about a violent, free election. See, if we rock the boat, we'll be the biggest losers.
All right then, so let's move away now slightly. The Central Bank of Nigeria has pegged maximum over-the-counter cash withdrawal per week for individuals at 100,000 naira and 500,000 naira for corporate organizations. The directive is contained in a circular to all deposit money banks and other financial institutions, primary mortgage banks and microfinance banks. The circular, dated December 6th and signed by the Director, Banking Supervision, Haruna Mustafa, directed that maximum cash withdrawal over the counter by individuals and corporate organizations per week shall henceforth be pegged at 100,000 naira and 500,000 naira. And the circular said that withdrawals above these limits shall attract processing fees of 5% and 10%. The circular further stated that the maximum cash withdrawal per week via automated teller machine shall be 100,000 naira, subject to a maximum of 20,000 naira cash withdrawal per day, while third-party checks above 50,000 naira shall not be eligible for payment over the counter. The Apex Bank said only denominations of 200 naira and below shall be loaded into the ATMs. The maximum cash withdrawal via point of sale terminal shall be 20,000 naira daily. And the circular further stated that the CBN further directed the banks to obtain valid identification, including bank verification numbers of the payee, and upload same on the CBN portal created for the purpose. The CBN directed the banks to file monthly returns on cash withdrawals transactions above the specified limits to the Banking Supervision Department. Now, this is the new policy. It will take effect nationwide from January 9, 2023, warning that aiding and abetting the circumvention of this policy will attract severe sanctions. So this is one of the latest that we've heard from the Central Bank of Nigeria. I would like to get your reaction to that, Emmanuel Njoku.
So you see the way I've been smiling. I've been very excited from when I saw this news some hours ago. So excited to the extent I was asking, why did it take them so long to do this? I say this because this policy will have too many gains, there are too many gains to it, but particularly talking about election. And I'll tie this to a research carried out in partnership with one organization called Dean Initiative, led by Semir Michael. The sample size for the research was 5,000 persons, and particular question was asked to Nigerians across rural communities in Nigeria. Will they be willing to sell their vote if they are offered money to buy? 70% of the people that responded to this question said yes, that they will sell their votes, 70%. That they do not care what these politicians are saying, that is whoever brings money, that's the person that they... So this is heartbreaking. Now, seeing a policy like this automatically will tackle the availability of such funds that will be made available during elections for people to be able to buy votes. If you tie it side by side with the first earlier policy of redesigning our currency, this is really, really, really good. This will bring you financial inclusion. Everybody will have to get into the banking system. Like, this thing will generate revenue for the government, because if everybody is in the banking system, it's more money for the country. This also will also reduce the cash flow and cost of cash handling across the country. And if this reduces cash flow across the country, you know, so the government earns more in all of this, and even crime, corruption. A lot of people have had cases where people get kidnapped. How do they pay for ransom? You must bring cash. But with this kind of policy, when people get kidnapped, how will they receive the ransom? You must pass through a bank.
Not forgetting the back channels, though. I mean, sometimes we have beautiful policies on paper, but when it comes to implementation, you find that there are just these, we call them black markets.
The only thing that will make this thing survive is our hope that the CBN governor and President Buhari will sustain the political will to ensure that this thing gets into effect by 9th January. Is a very welcome development for me.
All right, let me get your own reaction, Madam Ali.
Well, you see, the CBN, until recently, actually has been largely responsible for the nation's increasing devaluation of the nation's currency. It's micro and macro monetary policies, the flip-flops. This is one example, but will they have the political will to enforce it to the latter? A lot of Nigerians are excited by the redesign of the Naira, and especially if you look at how the Naira has been grossly undervalued against the, what they like to call convertible currency like the dollar. At this exchange rate, the purchasing parity of the Naira is high. But then look at it, what we have here now. If you want to check beyond what my co-panelists now listed, the gains, especially as election 0 hour approaches, the possibility of corrupting the system, vote buying, and associated ills. If you look at it, at the core of the nation's inflation, if you like, what we have now is hyperinflation. We have the nation's currency that is grossly undervalued, and then we have issues of supply. There are shortages in supply, which is worldwide anyway. Shortages in supply in the essential, in gas, in energy, worldwide. It's a worldwide thing. Now you have problem of production. If you're not producing, you have inflation. You'll be exerting so much pressure on the nation's currency, because with so much money chasing fewer goods, there will be hyperinflation. But it's welcome, and it will help to check. Already people are beginning to speculate that people who rushed and mop up dollars to mop up excess naira ahead of the deadline for this, that look, the dollar will be compelled, will crash. People are making that speculation that by January, when the policy comes into effect, total effect, and with this latest policy now, that you can't withdraw more than, already there's been a ceiling on how much you can withdraw from your domiciliary account, and how much you can deposit. So we see that, but you see, at the end of the day, unless we find a way to also boost protection, unfortunately, I'm a little bit skeptical about how much gains we'll get from that. Having said all this, we also have to look at, would there be the political will to enforce this to the latter? Because politicians are very wily people. They are very foxy people. And don't forget, the CBN governor himself has proved in the past to be partisan. People ask, why is he still even superintending over the affairs of the nation's Apex Bank? Why? Because he has betrayed, he has demonstrated, betrayed an interest in running for president until at the 11th hour something happened. So even for that now, people are asking how altruistic, much as we welcome it, it's a welcome thing. Any patriot will welcome some of the measures taken now to check the increasing depreciation of the nation's currency. But having looked all of this, as a pedestrian economist, you will say, look, it's a long way from home, but we get there. If you go, we maintain this, and then if there is no, it's enforced to the latter, the political will is there, perhaps then we will get somewhere.
All right, well then, hopefully, if your candidate wins the election in 2023, he will sustain the momentum and ensure the full implementation of this to the latter without any delays and dragging of feet. Thank you so much. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you for joining us and sharing your perspectives with us. Ali M. Ali, who is a member of the All Progressives Congress and also the Deputy Director, Media for the Presidential Campaign Council, and also Emmanuel Njoku, Director, Democracy and Governance Connected Development. Thank you for joining us on Daily Politics.
And thank you for having me.
Yes.
All right, that's our show for today. In case you have missed, you can always catch up across all our social media platforms and also watch us live on YouTube, where we are always streaming 247. Watch the show again tomorrow on the same time. My name is Ayuba Ilya. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.